Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this E3 exam specific tips and techniques webinar. We're delighted to be joined by Anthony Williams, who is a tutor from Astranti. Before I hand over to Anthony, there are a few points I would like to make. To minimize disruption, you have all automatically been muted. If you have any questions, please pop them in the questions box, as there will be a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Following this session, you will all be sent a recording of the webinar. So without further ado, I will now hand over to Anthony.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Jack. Hi, yes, my name's Anthony Williams. I'm a tutor at Astranti. My special area is the E pillar, so I write the study text and the questions for E1, E2 and E3. So I've written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of E3 level questions. And so what I'm hoping to do today is to give you a bit of an insight into how we actually come up with the questions, what we use to come up with the questions, and hopefully that's going to give you some kind of understanding to how you can focus your revision, what actually are CIMA looking for when they test you. So I'm just going to go into full screen mode a second, bear with me. And that does mean I can't see your questions, but I will answer them at the end, okay? So what are we going to be looking at in today's section? Well, first, I'm just going to give you a very quick overview to the exam and what to expect. Then I'm going to move on to kind of a really general exam technique that I would be suggesting you use even if this was a certificate level webinar, because I think it's really important to go in with a kind of exam technique, whatever level you are sitting. And it's especially important at E3, because what we're going to see when we get onto the sample questions is how long the actual questions can be. And so it's really important that time management is a factor into how you approach the exam. And the exam technique we're going to talk about will really help you with that. Then we're going to move on to the sample questions. We're hopefully going to get through about 4, and I'm going to show you how I would go about writing them and how I would go about answering them as well. And then, as Jack said, there'll be a Q&A session at the end. Feel free to add the questions as we go along, and I'll do my best to answer as many as possible at the end. So, at the beginning, I've just got just a few screenshots from CIMA's website itself that explain what we're going to be talking about today and what the exam that you're going to be sitting. So firstly, I just want to start with some really good news. So if we look at the pass rates at the moment for E3, you can see all of the E pillar actually has the highest pass rates. And E3 is the lowest of those with 74%. But when you compare that to all the other CIMA exams, actually, apart from F1, even though E3 is a strategic level, I think you can feel really confident about sitting this exam, because obviously it's one of the ones that students find the easiest. And the reason I think that is because a lot of E3 can be answered using your general business knowledge, okay? So if you're ever panicking answering a question, just actually think about the real world. Think, okay, what would I actually do in this situation? And you can have a really educated guess at the answer. Okay, so let's talk about the questions themselves. Analysis and evaluation are the skill levels. So there are about 5 skill levels that CIMA set their questions at. Analysis and evaluation are the highest. Evaluation is the most kind of complex question. And pretty much every question that CIMA set at E3 is an analysis or an evaluation. So pretty much what you're going to be doing is analyzing a scenario, and then recommending something or suggesting a course of action or picking the most appropriate answer. And that's why I say the time management is so important, because with these scenarios, it just means the questions get longer. It means you've got less time, and you still have the same amount of time as you did at E1, still 60 questions. So it's really important you focus on time. Now, just very quickly, the E3 exam is focusing on 6 major topics. They're all roughly weighted the same, about 15 to 20%. So you really do have to make sure you revise the entire syllabus, although you kind of do anyway for all CIMA topics, because they can just test you on anything they want to do. But you should have a relatively equal weighting throughout your exam. So there's nothing, hopefully, too stressful so far, and hopefully this makes you think, well, actually, yeah, this is a really achievable exam. And by coming here today on a really beautiful day, I already think you're displaying the right attitude to passing this exam. So hopefully this will help you in your revision. So the next thing I want to look at are the question types that are included. I'm not going to spend too long on this. We got multiple choice, we got multiple response, drag and drop are the way you drag the terms into the appropriate spaces. You won't have any hotspots. You're probably not going to have any short answers because they're normally calculations. You're probably not going to have any calculations at all during this exam. And then you've got numeric, which there won't be really many of either. Drop down, which is very similar to drag and drop. Then you've got matching, which you'll have a fair few of. But ranking is a funny one. So when we started writing the questions for the new syllabus, ranking or sequence questions was one of the ones that we were told that's going to be in there. But actually the feedback that we're getting from our students is there's not really any sequence or ranking questions. So what we're doing at the moment is modifying our mock exams to reflect that. So officially, you're going to get ranking questions. Unofficially, from what we're finding out from the students, you're not going to have any. And then sentence completion, very similar to the others, drag and drop down. Okay. Going to fly through that because I know you'll all have done loads of exams already. So here is the general exam technique that I was talking about, the one that I would be telling you even if you were studying for your certificate level. Okay, so we've got 60 questions. We know we've got 90 minutes, and that gives us, as always, for these OT exams, 1.5 minutes per question. Now, with these questions getting longer, you really don't have any time to waste at all, and it's vital that you are efficient as possible, because I can almost guarantee that the reason why the E3 pass rate is at 74% or whatever it was and not in the 80s is because of time management. That's generally the feedback we get from the students. There's just so much to do in the time. So here's what we suggest for all of the exams, okay? Step one is you go through and get your quick wins. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, basically, you start question one. If you can answer it, answer it. If it's too long and it's going to take a lot of time, you immediately go to question two. If you don't know what the topic is that well, you immediately go to question two. The idea is you are answering these in about 30 seconds or less, okay? So you're really flying through them, because if you take too long, that's going to upset the whole procedure. So you're answering. If not, you flag it and it will come up like this at the end, or you don't even have to flag it really, because it'll always be marked as incomplete. And then you get to the end. You've not wasted any time. You've answered only the questions you can answer quickly. And now in step two, you go back to the beginning, okay? This is where you're going to review all the questions that you haven't already answered. Now, the good thing is, because you've only spent 30 seconds-ish on step one per question, now you've bought yourself more time for these longer, more complex questions. But again, you're going to be really strict time managers. You're not going to spend any more time than this on them, because of course you might spend 5 minutes on one question and then actually run out of time, whereas all the questions beyond that you could have answered really quickly. All the questions are worth the same, so don't spend more than this time on them. And again, if you can't answer them, just leave them flagged. And when you get to the end, then you go back to the beginning again. And then this is the final step. This is where you just go and answer everything. So in step two, you might think, well, I'm not quite sure it's between this answer and this answer. In step three, you kind of go, okay, I'm just going to put an answer down. And now it's an educated guess. I've done my revision. I'm not going to get marked down for putting a wrong answer in. There's no negative marking. So you're more likely to get more points from doing this step three than losing them. And so by the end of step three, you will have answered every question and you will have done it within the time. But it's really important in the step two, you don't spend more than the 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes per question. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure a lot of you have a system like that already. I know you're at the E3 level, but when we come onto the questions now, hopefully you'll see the reasons why I'm saying actually it's really important that you time manage correctly. Okay, so let's go down to the question. So this is question one. So what we're going to do now is run through some sample questions and look at how I would go about answering them. Now, obviously, I'm going to put a lot more steps into answering these questions. I'm going to write stuff down. I'm going to highlight stuff, all the stuff that you don't have to do. But I just want to show you my thought process into answering these questions. And hopefully, I'll also show you some techniques about how to answer them quicker as well. So here's the question. What you may have noticed at the top of the screen is something called a syllabus reference. Now, some of you may not be familiar with this, but when CIMA create their syllabus, they put something in next to the topics called a syllabus reference. So for question 1, it's understand industry ecosystems. Now, that's quite a simple one. Now, basically, these syllabus references are what CIMA expect you to be able to do as a finance professional. So the moment your students studying to pass CIMA, to become fully qualified in CIMA, and this is what they expect you to be able to do once you've got that qualification. So these are alongside the topics throughout the syllabuses, and basically what it gives is question writers an idea on what they should be testing you on. So obviously what we want to be creating here is a question to show that you understand industry ecosystems. Now, as I said at the beginning, these are pretty much all going to be analysis and evaluation questions. So you're not going to have a question like, what is an industry ecosystem, and then match the definitions, because that's too simple. Okay, so it's going to be complex ways of making sure that you understand industry ecosystems. That being said, I've started off with a fairly simple one just to get us going. So what I always do first is I read the requirement line, match the following terms relating to business ecosystems to their most relevant examples. So you can see in these boxes here, we haven't got definitions, we've got examples. So you can see we've got that extra layer of complexity, okay? But obviously, to be able to answer this question, we need to understand the terms on the left-hand side. So when we're talking about business ecosystems, with an orchestrator, we're talking about an entity that would facilitate the orchestration process in an ecosystem. So for example, it might be that an orchestrator takes payment from one participant and would allocate it to another relevant participant in the ecosystem. And for that, they may take a fee. I'm sure they would take a fee, actually. So what I'm going to do here is just write facilitator, okay, just to give us some notes. Okay, then we've got B, which is participant. Now, a participant is anyone, basically, an individual player or an organization within an ecosystem. So this is pretty much anyone. So I'm just going to leave it at participants. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Then we move down to C. Now, mutuality is a key concept in business ecosystems, because basically it's talking about the mutual benefit for participants to work together to create something of value greater than they're able to do alone. That's kind of the whole point of an ecosystem. So I'm just going to put benefit here. And then finally, we've got a term at the bottom, D, which I know you are familiar with. It's exactly the same as it in an ecosystem as it is in a traditional market. We've got a supplier, someone that supplies another entity with goods or services. So there we go. We've got our 4 terms. Now, what do we have to do? We have to match the following terms to the most relevant examples. So already I'm seeing this kind of unclear language, the most relevant. That suggests to me that there might not be binary choices, that actually we may have to think, well, actually this one is more relevant than others. And again, there's another layer of complexity. So I see language like this, I'm automatically thinking, okay, well, hold on. I'm just going to work through and make sure I'm confident in all the answers before I actually start selecting. Okay, so let's start with number 1. AD is a specialist shop based in a small town. Okay, so it's a shop of physical premises. Since AD has started selling on EBA, AD has seen its sales increase by 1,000% and now has customers all over the world. Okay, so we've got a specialist shop. And it seems to me that EBA is some kind of web platform, because now they can contact customers and sell to customers all over the world. And because of that, business is booming. Okay. So in terms of the terms that we've got on the side, to me, AD doesn't sound like an orchestrator, the focus here seems to be on it being a participant. It certainly is a participant. However, it would also seem to fit in with mutuality because AD is doing very well by being on EBA, but it doesn't seem like that AD is a supplier. So I've got a couple of choices I think it could be, but I'm going to work through them all because of this term, the most relevant. I know that some might apply to more than one. Okay, let's move down to 2. F regularly purchases items from EBA. So it seems to me the focus is on F here. So it doesn't seem like it's supplying EBA, or we're not looking at EBA being the supplier to F. Doesn't seem to be a lot of mutuality going along. There doesn't seem to be any reference to orchestrators. So my feeling at the moment is that F is a participant. That would be B. But we also know that AD would be a participant as well. So we've got to keep on going through. 3, LLP manufactures the items that AD purchases to sell in its shop and on EBA. Well, to me, as a manufacturer that sells to other entities, that to me definitely sounds like a supplier, even though LLP would also be a participant. And then we've got our final one. EBA is an online auction site that hosts consumer-to-consumer and business-to-consumer sales. Consumers pay EBA, and the site, which would be EBA, allocates the payment to the appropriate seller, taking a commission for every sale. Well, that really fits into the definition that I gave right at the beginning, doesn't it? So it seems to me that EBA is the orchestrator here. This is the entity that's taking money from participants, giving it to AD, and AD are able to have more customers, and EBA are taking a commission for that role. So that to me sounds like an orchestrator. And if we go back to 1 now, this sounds very much like the idea of mutuality, because we know that AD is benefiting from EBA. Otherwise, it wouldn't have these sales if it weren't for EBA. And EBA is getting commission on the sales that it wouldn't have if it weren't for AD. So there we go. We can see that mutuality that is really vital for an ecosystem. And we've got our answers, C, B, D, and A. And this one, or participant rather, could have been a few of them. So you can see, watch out for the terminology, in the requirement lines. Okay, so I said we start off with a nice simple one. Let's move down now and increase the complexity slightly. So again, we've got our syllabus reference. Perform a PESTEL analysis to analyze the impact of society on an organization. So what CIMA expect you to be able to do when you are fully qualified finance professionals is to be able to perform a PESTEL analysis to analyze the impact of society on an organization. So you've got to think, when you're revising, would you make that link for PESTEL? It's not a case of just learning what it stands for, but actually you've got to understand its relationship to an organization. Okay, so now we've got to think about the actual question itself, and as always, we're going to start with the requirement line right down here. Now I do this because if you start with the requirement line, when it comes to reading the scenario, you already kind of subconsciously picking out what you should be looking for. Whereas if you do this one first, the scenario first, you're then going to have to go back to it anyway. So you're saving yourself time by doing it. Okay, so the requirement line is, which of the following are the legal and economic factors most likely to be affecting company VTX's performance in country KH? So again, this language most likely. What that's saying to me is actually, hold on a minute, there's going to be a few that can affect company VTX's performance in country KH, and we've got to choose the best ones. And again, that's what's given us this level of complexity in the questions. Okay, so which of the following are the legal and economic factors most likely to be affecting company VTX's performance in country KH? Now we know, because we've got the syllabus reference, that this is on PESTEL, and that's what the legal and economic factors are. But remember, in the exam, you're not going to have the syllabus reference. So let's look at question 2. The board of company VTX, a magazine printer and distributor based in country FF, but also operating in country KH, is concerned that the circulation of its premium magazine aimed at men aged 20 to 28 has steadily decreased in country KH over the past 3 years. So we've got a company here that's operating in multiple countries. And if you look at the question again, we're looking at the performance in KH only, okay? So anything to do with FF isn't in our interest to answer, okay? And we can draw that conclusion really quickly because we've read the requirement line first. VTX's board wishes to investigate why this downward trend is occurring and will use a pastel analysis in its investigation. And we know that we've got to look at the legal and economic factors to judge what's causing this downturn in circulation for the premium magazine in country KH. So we're going to select the two that apply. And before we get to the actual answers, I do think we need to remind ourselves what we're talking about with these legal and economic factors. So we start with the economic factors. Basically, this is anything to do with the economy. So it can be things like interest rates, exchange rates, or growth, anything to do with the economy. And of course, that's really going to impact on how business does or works or operates. And then with legal factors, we're talking about the different laws of a specific country. Okay, now with a company like VTX that's operating in multiple countries, then obviously company VTX is going to have to be aware of the laws in each of the company operates in to make sure it abides by them. And that, of course, impacts on how company VTX does business. Okay, so we know we're looking for economic factors and legal factors. So let's have a look and let's work through the answers. A, after an election, an environmentalist party has formed a government in country KH and are planning to introduce legislation, limiting deforestation and paper production. So what do we think here? Are we talking about legal factors? There seems to be a lot about legislation, but the key point here to notice is they are planning to do it. Okay. The laws aren't laws yet. Actually, at the moment, it seems to be more of a political factor when we're looking at how the government is intervening in the country. And this seems to be more of a political process. And another thing, I'm not eliminating this just because of pastel. I'm also eliminating this because we're talking about the legislation that's about to come in. What we're looking for is a reason why the magazine has decreasing in circulation over the past 3 years. So how could that have impacted on it at all? Okay, B, the value of country FF's currency has gone down, so imports from abroad are more expensive. Well, this is definitely an economic factor. So this is what we're looking for. But is it the reason why? Well, no, because what we're talking about here is imports into country FF are more expensive. Actually, that may not have any bearing at all on country KH. Perhaps the only way it's going to affect performance is when trying to transfer profits back to the main company in country FF. Doesn't seem to have any direct relevance to why readership may be falling. So I'm going to put a cross through there. C, the population of country KH has been aging for several decades despite attempts by successive governments to reverse the trend. Okay, well, we've got a magazine aimed at 20 to 28-year-olds. That seems to be something that would really impact on readership. But we are looking for legal and economic factors, and this is a social factor because we're talking about the demographics of a country. So that's not the right answer here. So we've got to find two that apply. We've only got two left. Hopefully we've not made any mistakes and D and E are the right answers. Otherwise we are in trouble. Okay, so with D, the economy of country KH is recovering from a recession 3 years ago. Well, that's certainly an economic factor. We're talking about recessions. And let's think about what it means to go through a recession. Well, it means that individuals have less disposable income. And if individuals have less disposable income, then it's very likely that one of the first things you stop buying are premium magazines. So that sounds like it could be a really valid and likely reason why the performance has fallen in country KH. Another thing to note is the recession happened 3 years ago, and we're looking at a decrease in sales over the past 3 years. So to me, that sounds like a definite right answer, and E should hopefully be a legal and economic factor. In fact, it's going to have to be illegal, isn't it? The ruling political party enacted strict censorship legislation for publications in country KH based on their religious ideologies. Now, the idea here of religious ideologies, does that make us think it might be a social factor? Well, no. It's the reason why the ruling political parties enacted laws. It's a legal factor. The actual ideology behind the reason for the laws aren't important. We're talking about laws. And would a strict censorship in a country impact on a men's magazine? Well, it probably would. The content may have to change, and that means that the readers might not find it as appealing anymore, and that could be a reason for its poor performance over the last few years. So I'm going to tick that one as well as our legal factor. Now, hopefully that all makes sense, and we've got our 2 answers there, and you can see I've just worked through it. And the reason why I think E3 has such high pass rates is actually you could just kind of work that out, almost common sense, I think, just using your general business knowledge. Okay, so let's move on down now to our question 3. Just gonna have some water. Okay, so we've got our syllabus reference. Prepare or review a Porter's value chain analysis to assess whether an organization has a sustainable, competitive advantage. Okay, and you can see, look at this really long scenario we've got going on here, and you've only got a minute and a half to answer these questions. That's why time management is so important. But as always, we're going to stick to the way we know it works. We're going to turn to the requirement line first. Having undertaken a value chain analysis, Lynn's leadership is now considering new strategies to increase the value offered to customers, which would be most appropriate. So again, we've got this terminology that suggests to me we can have a few answers that might be appropriate, and it's going to be up to you to decide which would be the most appropriate, which is going to be the most useful. Now, to answer this, we're actually going to have to go through the scenario, aren't we? So let's break this down because it's a long one. Lynn, a 50-year-old sofa company, has been run by the same family for generations. Okay, in that time, Lynn has expanded, but still manufactures its sofas in the same town using the same manufacturing techniques. It has a strong relationship with its suppliers, many of whom are local. Let me highlight that. And sells its sofas through large department stores, which Lynn leadership feel share the same traditional values as its product ranges. Okay, so what this is saying to me, we've almost got this heritage company. They produce in the same way they've done for generations. They use the same suppliers. They're in the same town. I can really imagine them using that as part of their brand. They've got this strong brand that perhaps older users are using and are used to and associate with quality. In recent years, the traditional styles offered by Lynn, have become outdated. And Lynn's profitability has fallen. Lynn's now been loss-making for the last 2 years. Not good. In response, Lynn has tried to offer new modern styles for younger consumers through the same conservative retailers, but these products have not been successful. Lynn offers an industry-leading 30-year guarantee, and that is a very good guarantee. So, okay, what we've got to do now is obviously go back to the requirement line. Lynn's leadership is now considering new strategies to increase the value offered to customers. So we've got to find the right strategy that's going to turn this situation around for Lynn. What's going to make them better? What's going to return them to profit? Okay. So before we get to our scenario, or to our answers, pardon me, we're going to have to know what a Porter's value chain is. And I'm sure you're all aware, Porter's value chain is a model that can be used to identify the value drivers in an organization's operations, which help the organization to create a competitive advantage. So what we're going to have to try and do is look to see how we can get Lean a competitive advantage. Now, the activities are split into two: primary activities and secondary activities. Now, the primary activities are those that relate to the production and sale processes and occur in every organization really in some form. Now, these primary activities are split down into 5 stages. We got one, which is inbound logistics. So basically all the activities that relate to getting the supplies to where they need to go, okay? And then we move on to the operations. In the operations, it's all about turning the supplies and those activities into the outputs, whether they are products like sofas in Lynn's case or services, okay? So we've got the supplies, then we've turned them into something, and then it's the outbound logistics. So this is about getting the goods or services that have just been created to where they need to be so they can be bought. And then we've got marketing and sales. Well, you know what marketing and sales are, so I'm not going to talk about those. And we've got after sales services as well. So that's all of the activities associated to keeping the product or the service working really effectively for the buyer after they bought it and had it delivered. So there we go. We've got our 5 stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we've got our 5 stages of our Porter's value chain. Now, what we got to do is associate it to what Lynn are doing so we can work out the best strategy for Lynn. So let's go through the answers now and see if we can associate the strategies to primary activities. So A, use cheaper suppliers, source from abroad, if necessary. Okay, so this is certainly the inbound logistics, isn't it? So what this strategy would be to say, okay, we're paying too much for our suppliers. If we reduce our costs, then perhaps we can reduce the price we sell our sofas for, and that may make us more appealing. That could be one train of thought. But would this be a good idea, do you think? Because actually, we know they've got a strong relationship with suppliers. They've had them for generations. And actually, this company really seems to be about its traditions and its heritage and its brand, and it's known for its quality, you know? So actually, by going to new suppliers with the emphasis on cheaper, is that going to be resolving any of the problems that we've encountered in the scenario? I don't think so. I'm going to put a cross by that. I'm pretty confident with that one. B, improve its after-sales service. So what is Lynn's after-sales service? Well, they've got an industry-leading 30-year guarantee. So if your sofa breaks for 30 years, they'll replace it or repair it for you. So that seems to me like it's really, really good. Okay, so I don't think that can be the correct answer either. Then we go through to C, which is manufacturing or improving the manufacturing with operations. Now, similar to the suppliers, this may not be a bad thing. They've been doing it in the same way for generations. It stands to reason that they may be able to improve the manufacturing. They might be able to make it more efficient. They might be able to make it cheaper. But does this help us sell more sofas? Because to me, it seems inherently linked to the brand, how it's manufactured in the same town, same traditional techniques. There's been no problems. You'd assume with a 30-year guarantee, Lynn are pretty confident about the quality of their sofas. So actually, is this going to improve the sales of it? I can't see how it would. So hopefully, D is going to be the right answer here. Alter its, pardon me, that should be, we've got a grammar error there. That's why everything needs to be proofed. Alter its outbound logistics and marketing. So what we've done here is, or what the question writers have done, is they've linked two together. Okay, so there's not one for every Porter's value chain. Okay, so what are its outbound logistics and marketing sales? Well, what we know is they sell through department stores, and they've updated the sofa styles to try to attract new consumers, and that's not worked. So what could they do? It stands to reason for me that they need to move away from their conservative department stores that have a consumer base, are used to the old traditional linen sofas, and move them to a new environment where they can be purchased by a new consumer base who may appreciate the new sofa styles. It seems to me that is the issue here. We've got no problems with the supplying, the quality, the price. We've got a problem with connecting the company to a new consumer group. So for me, D is the right answer. And can you see how, again, what I was doing there was using general business knowledge, pardon me. It didn't necessarily come around to thinking, oh, okay, Porter's value chain. You could almost work your way through those questions just by sound logic. Okay, so let's move on to our final question. How are we doing for time? Perfect. We're gonna have time for questions at the end if necessary. So we've got our final syllabus reference. Prepare or review Porter's generic strategy. So it's a different Porter this time. Ansof's matrix and method of growth for establishing a choice of possible future strategies. Okay, so what we're doing here is using one of these tools, and what CIMA want you to be able to do is think, well, actually, what would be the best choice of future strategy for a business? Okay, and so the questions are going to be written with that in mind. So that's really going to help you focus your revision on topics, really go into the exam knowing kind of the framework of how the questions will be set out. Okay, question 4. As always, we're going to jump straight down to the requirement line. According to Porter's generic strategies model, how would FBD's new strategy be classified? Okay, so what we're doing here is looking at Porter's generic strategies, and we've got to relate that to a company and see what their new strategy is like. And at the bottom, we've got, if I just scroll down a little bit more, we can see we've got 4 terms, which are all from Porter's generic strategies model. Now, this all relates to competitive advantage, basically, because Porter said there were 2 basic types of competitive advantage. There's cost leadership, and with cost leadership, an organization has the lowest internal costs. And what that means is it's able to supply a product or a service or whatever it's doing at a lower cost than those of the competitors. So they can either pass on those savings to the customers and say, actually, we've got the cheapest product on the market because no one else can make them and sell them that cheaply, or they can keep the savings they've made, sell the product or the service at the same price as their competitors, the same price point, but they'll have a higher profit margin, and that's their competitive advantage. And the second basic type of competitive advantage is differentiation. So basically what we're talking about with differentiation is the product or the service has a unique attribute, and because of this unique attribute, the customer wants to purchase it. And because of this unique attribute, normally you can charge a higher price than the more basic products or services. So there are 2 types of generic strategies. But actually, what Porter then did was broke those down into 4. So with cost leadership, he said, okay, this is aimed at a wide sector of the market. There's 2 forms of that: cost leadership, the wide sector of the market, and then cost focus, which is aimed at a narrow segment of the market, but still with the aim of being the lowest cost provider or having the lowest internal costs in that narrow focus. And with differentiation, did exactly the same thing. Differentiation as a strategy is a broad sector of the market, and with differentiation focus, you're looking at the narrower segment of the market. But you can see the second form of differentiation isn't on there. What we have instead is stuck in the middle. Now, if Porter said if you don't have one of these 4 strategies, you're going to end up getting stuck in the middle, which basically means you've got no competitive advantage whatsoever, and the business could be in trouble. Okay, so you don't want to be in that. So that's a brief reminder of what Porter's generic strategies are. Now let's relate it to the scenario itself. So let me get my highlighter back up. FBD manufactures white goods in country P. Due to its long-term relationships with its domestic suppliers, FBD has been able to pursue a cost leadership strategy. Okay, so it has the lowest internal costs amongst its competitors, so it can either sell its products or services more cheaply, or keep more profit to itself. Other brands in country P produce more expensive white goods with more features than FBD's, although FBD's brand is associated with reliability. So what we can see here is FBD manufactures, gets its supplies from country P, manufactures in country P, and sells in country P. Other brands in country P follow a different strategy. They've maybe got more fancy features, but good news for FBD, it is associated with reliability. So even though it's cheapest, it's still thought of as really reliable. Okay, so let's move on to our second paragraph now, which is, however, country P, which is the country that FBD operates in, has recently signed a trade agreement with country C, a country that has far lower manufacturing costs than country P. So what does that mean? Well, basically it means organizations or entities in country C are going to be able to produce things more cheaply than country P. So perhaps the wages are going to be much cheaper, which means the goods are going to be produced much more cheaply, that kind of thing. Now, this has meant that the market in country P has been flooded with cheap white goods far cheaper than FBD is able to produce them for. Okay, so remember what we said about cost leadership strategy. Suddenly, it's not got the lowest internal costs on the market. Suddenly, it's going to have to change its approach, you would think. So what does it try and do? Because we know they've got a new strategy and we've got to classify it. The board has decided to switch to an adversarial supply chain management style with its domestic suppliers in order to reduce supplier prices and presumably compete on price and stay as a cost leader. Okay. So to answer this question, we need to know what an adversarial, keep getting it wrong, supply chain management style is. And actually, it's considered quite old-fashioned, because what you're really trying to do if an entity is using this style is try and really drive down costs of its suppliers. Now, of course, that sounds like a really good thing because you're going to get things cheaper. But what it does mean is you're not so focused on building partnerships and relationships with your suppliers. In reality, you're looking for the best deal and only the best deals. That might involve switching lots of times and just going where the deal is best. Now, we can see that FBD has a long-term relationships with its domestic suppliers. Okay, so we can see it's really changing its approach in order to try to keep to this strategy. So now we've got to classify it. So let's work through the answers. So if you remember, cost focus is basically a cost leadership style, but it's got a focus on having a narrow focus. It's not aimed at a wide cross section of customers. It's aimed at a narrow defined segment of a market. But actually, there's nothing in this scenario at all to suggest that FBD is saying, okay, we're not trying to sell to all of country P anymore. We're trying to sell to a little part of it. So that can't be the right answer. I'm then going to skip down to the actual next strategy. So we've got differentiation. We know with differentiation, we're looking at unique attributes. And we can see that FBD isn't doing anything at all. It's not adding any fancy features. It's not trying to differentiate itself from products coming from country C whatsoever. So it's not differentiation. So that leaves us with the strategy it originally had, cost leadership, and it leaves us with B, stuck in the middle. Okay, so let's think about cost leadership, because that's what it did have. It did have the lowest kind of costs in the country before the trade agreement was signed. And it is trying to keep to that strategy, I think. But the problem is this going to make a difference? So it's going to try to drive down its suppliers. Now, FBD is a manufacturer. So its goods that it uses in its own products isn't the only cost it has. It's going to have factory costs and staffing those factory costs, for example. But of course, we know the country C has all-round lower manufacturing costs. So even if they can use this effectively, this new supply chain management style, is it going to make them cost leaders? Probably not. And secondly, they've already got a really long-term relationship with their suppliers. So how much do you think they're actually going to drive down the prices? They must already have a pretty good prices with their suppliers because they've got such a long-term relationship with them. So I don't think they can be cost leaders anymore. Now, does that mean they are stuck in the middle? Well, yes, I think it does, because they don't differentiate and they can't produce the goods at the lowest price. So the idea now, according to Porter, would be that they do not have a competitive advantage anymore. They are going to get overtaken by the companies in country P that were producing fancy fridges or unique fridges or white goods. And they're also going to lose consumers and customers to those goods coming from country P. So there we go. That is our answer there. B is the right answer. And in fact, that is the end of our sample questions now. Now, hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully you can see the order in which I'm doing these questions every time. And hopefully you think it's worthwhile going to the CIMA website and checking out the syllabus and seeing the blueprint, because I really think it helps show you in what way you're supposed to be using these models, how they may be tested. And that means that when you come to actually sit in your exam, you're going to not have any nasty surprises. And hopefully you can also see how I've just worked my way through that really logically. I've assumed this is real world, and I've used my business knowledge to just talk myself through it step by step, working things out, often with process of elimination when the terminology suggests that more than one answer is going to be relevant. So there we go. That's how I would approach it. Requirement line first, scenario, requirement line, and then look at the answers themselves. And that's the end of these sample questions. I've got one more thing to say to you now before I actually exit my full screen and look to see if you've got any questions for me. We've got a free E3 study text worth $29.99. Now, I should say that is my error. It's actually worth $25.99 or $24.99. Don't report me to trade descriptions. It's an honest mistake. But you get that free from having sat through me talking for an hour or 45 minutes. So all you need to do to go and get this free study text is go to astranti.com/CIMA/management/objectives study texts, and then select it and then enter the code at the checkout. And this is valid, I think, until midnight next Wednesday. Yeah, so free study text for you, definitely worth going to get. So what I'm going to do now is just exit full screen if I can. I'm just going to plug my mouse down with a few more beeps and noises. Apologies. And exit full screen a second so I can see if there's been any questions at all. Okay. Just looking now. I can't see any at the moment unless I'm missing something. Oh, yes, I am missing something. There we go. Are there ethics questions tested for E3? Yeah, you do get ethics. I mean, you're going to have ethics questions tested at every level of CIMA. Like, there's a real focus. We talked about the blueprint and the syllabus reference, focusing on what they want you to be like once you're fully qualified. And one of the things they really want you to be is ethical, which is why ethics is tested at every level in E3. What I would say, though, is having got to E3, you're not going to be introduced to anything totally new in terms of ethics. There's not going to be any new surprises. It's going to be pretty much the same stuff you've already learned. But of course, what you'll be doing now is applying it to strategies. So, for example, you might be using the McFarlane model to kind of say, is this strategy ethical? Is it going to cause problems to the environment? And if so, when answering these questions, you've got to remember ethics is what CIMA are looking for. So that's going to really inform your answer. Well, no, we can't do that. It's unethical. It's not how we want to be perceived, because that's the kind of management accountants that CIMA want to be releasing into the professional environment. Okay, so hopefully that's answered your question. Let me just see if I can work out the rest of these questions. Okay. How many weeks of revision do you need to pass E3? Now, this is a question we get asked a lot, and it's always really difficult to answer because you don't know how long people have to actually revise, how long they're spending on it, how familiar they are with the material anyway, whether they prefer numbers-based exams rather than text-based exams. But if you followed a pretty strict revision plan, I reckon you could do it in 6 to 8 weeks. But that does, of course, depend entirely on how much time you have to devote to it. What I would say is really important is try and work out a really effective revision strategy for yourself. So obviously we're giving away the free study text here. That would be my first port of call. But what I would be doing is answering as many questions as I can lay my hands on as possible, because you can just see you're really then going to start learning the knowledge in the way that it's going to be used in the exam. So I would really focus either on study text if you prefer reading, or videos to actually get the knowledge, and then questions. At Astranti, we offer exam practice kits, and we also offer mocks. And actually the mocks we've got really good feedback for. Apparently they're really close to the actual exams themselves. And what we've tried to do is pitch them a little bit more harder than you're going to find in an exam. So hopefully if you're doing our mocks, you'll actually get to the exam and think, actually, it's not so bad. And that's the kind of the aim of our mocks. So hopefully that helps. As I say, it's really difficult to say how long people should take on it, because everyone's circumstances are really, really different. Okay, next question. What would you recommend passing first time? I'm not quite sure what that's meaning, I'm afraid. I don't know if that means in terms of exams or in terms of questions. I'm not sure. In terms of exams, if that is the right way to read it, I would suggest you go with actually the P's and the F's, because the E's are really closely related to the strategic case study, and that's going to help you not having to re-go everything again. But you know, it's whatever you've got time for, really. What do you feel confident on in the time you've got, and then just go for that. Okay, have we got any more revision? How many quick wins on average can be expected in a real exam? Okay, that's a really good question. And again, it's really difficult to answer. I'm sure you're all aware of the different variants that CIMA have in the exams. So it's going to depend on the type of variant you get. And also it's going to depend on how well you revise and how confident you feel with the material, because that's going to inform what you think is a quick win. What I would say is, we focused on analysis and evaluation questions today, there are a couple of understanding and learnings in there as well. I mean, a couple. And what I would also say is that CIMA can test up to the level of analysis or evaluation. So in a particularly analysis evaluation heavy exam, they might put in for more quick wins, so understanding and learning level questions, to try and balance out the amount of time you're going to be spending. So again, I'm not giving a very specific answer, I'm afraid, but because it depends on the variant. But also, I wouldn't worry about not having any. I know we looked at some really long ones towards the end. Your exam's not going to be like that. Otherwise, I would think it'd be almost pretty impossible to pass. And we saw from the beginning that it's not impossible. It's one of the best ones to be passing. So hopefully that helps in some way. And the link objective test takes us to, oh, you are so right, to E2, should be available at strategic in the link. Thank you so much for it. You see, I need a proofer the whole time. I said at the beginning I write the E3 material and the questions and the study text and make the videos, but obviously I'm nothing without a proofer, because I've made 2 mistakes in the one section they've not looked at. So the free study text should be worth $24.99, and thank you for sending that in. It's not the management, obviously it's strategic level. So that link will work exactly right if you put strategic in it. My apologies, I don't know how I've managed to do that, but thank you so much for pointing that out. Okay, any more? I think that might be quick wins and average. If there are more than one answer to questions. Okay, I've got one here. If there are more than one answers to a question, especially when they ask to, especially when they ask to answer all the correct answers. Sorry, hold on. The correct answers. How would the marks are counted each correct answer? No. So you get a set amount of marks per question. So this is why I'm saying doing it in the order we suggest. No question is worth more than another question. So you might have to answer 3 things for one and just 1 for another, and the points are the same. So this is why really not to get fixated on one specific question, because the questions that come after it might be much shorter, much quicker, and they're worth the same amount of points. And that's exactly why we suggest doing the strategy that we suggest. So hopefully that helps. I think That may be it. Is there any discount to buy mock exam packs from Astranti? I think what you have to do there, I'm afraid I'm just involved in production, as you can tell by me not knowing the price of a study text. So what you're going to have to do is email in Astranti, say you've sat this course today, say that you've had to listen to me talk for an hour, surely that's worth something, and see what our very friendly customer service department how they'll respond. But I mean, I don't want to just sell our own stuff, so I would really suggest always practicing mocks. I mean, I do think ours are really good, but I know there are lots of other companies out there, and I just think it's such a vital exam tool. It would be really my #1 port of call, that alongside kind of a bank of knowledge, a study text, or a video, whichever your best way of learning is. Okay. I think that is everything now. I can't quite see the reason I'm finding it so difficult, it seems very small, so I'm obviously doing something correctly. But I think
if you click the little square next to the X, it will pop it out.
Little square next to the X. I've only got an X.
Well, on the tab.
Yeah, it still pops up a bit. It's still quite small. It's my fault for not wearing my glasses today, I think. They do come up bigger, but I can't quite see how many I've got. I think that's them though. Yeah, I'm on it now. It's just, how would you recommend we get over the issues of when we are stuck between answers and we need to pick one of them? Say, how can we narrow it down? Well, hopefully the way I was working through these questions, I used a lot of logic. So I really thought about it in the real world. I didn't think about it as a question with a theoretical answer. I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm in charge of this business, or I've got to make a suggestion to this business. What would my suggestion be? If we thought back to that sofa one, then the Lin company, then really it was just a matter of elimination. If you sit there and think real world, what's going to help this company, then there's only one real answer to it. So I trust your judgment if you're trying to narrow it down between two answers. And also remember, just don't fixate on it. Don't spend too long thinking between two answers. If you're really unsure, leave it for your third pass and then just trust your instinct to do it. But all of these questions will be logical to work out because the models themselves in E3 are relatively logical. So we've got generic strategies, we've got Ansov's matrix, I'm sure you're all familiar with. These aren't kind of complex models. They're models that give you a framework to answer questions in a really logical way. So just use your own knowledge if you're not sure about them. And I think, like I said earlier, that's why the E3 has such a high pass rate. So trust yourself would be my answer to that one. Hopefully that's good enough for you. I think that is it now.
So there's one question. This person sat the E3 twice, but got very close on the mark, but never done the strategy that you've outlined today.
Okay.
Would you recommend that they switch to your technique?
100%.
Yeah, and also highlighting is good, but can you highlight on the exam?
No, you can't highlight on the exam. So that was just really to show my thought process. And obviously, I don't know, I probably took about 9 minutes to answer each of those questions. And obviously that's going to be far too long for the exam. I just wanted to show you the bits I was picking out. So we had a requirement line, and then I would look at the elements that I thought were connected from reading the requirement line as I went through the scenario. So no, you won't have time to highlight. I would 100% recommend that strategy. It works. We've had thousands and thousands of students. It's what we always recommend, as I said, at whatever level someone's on, because it keeps you so focused on the time frame, and it keeps you so focused on knowing what to do, and it helps relieve that kind of panic and stress you get in an exam, and that kind of horrible feeling that you're stuck on the first question or the second question and you're never going to get through it and you're never going to pass. You just get through until you find one. It just helps build up the confidence, and it will help you with timing, and I'm sure third time will be a charm for you.
Okay, so that's towards the end of the webinar now. Did you want to just add anything else, Anthony, before I wrap up?
No, I'm very happy, unless anyone else has got any comments to make. Thank you very much for coming today, and good luck with your exams.
Perfect. As I said earlier, everyone will receive the recording of this webinar so you can watch back. That should be sent to you all within the next few hours. I've popped a SurveyMonkey link in the chat box. We'd be grateful if you could give us your feedback. So again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine and have a good day.
Thank you.